Nas, he's working, man. We got King's Disease 1 last year, 2020. So he's working, dropping these albums. And of course, just a little bit before that, we got the album he collaborated on with Kanye during those Wyoming sessions we just were talking about.
Mm.
So he's been putting out music. And I think, at least from what I remember, our takeaway from King's Disease 1 was that, especially after those Wyoming sessions, Nas sounded a bit more inspired and a bit more back to form on King's Disease. So I
Yeah.
think we were pleasantly surprised by it. Did that continue on King's Disease 2 for you?
Oh, it definitely did. And that's very exciting because King's Disease 1, which I thought was very good and definitely very good per late period Nas standards, ended up being Nas's first Grammy winning album. Wins best
Crazy.
rap album, Nas's first Grammy win. Crazy to think about given he's in his late 40s. And yet King's Disease 2 comes out. I believe this is actually a little less than a year later, about a year later. And I think this is really effective. Notably, the second time Nas has released two albums in a year. And I think this is a lot better than I Am and Nostradamus went, particularly Nostradamus,
Mm,
of course, as everybody knows, being a bit of a mess per Nas standards in the 90s. But this, Nas seems, he just seems so almost like casual. Like he's like so like low stress, but still quite ambitious lyrically. I thought King's Disease 2 sounded great. And, he seems to have found something with his collaborations with Hit Boy, who
hmm
executive produced both King's Disease albums. They seem to really bring the best out of each other, which is really cool. And yeah, I think Nas sounds awesome.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, the smoothness of this album was the word I wrote down. It just sounds like, I think the effortlessness that you alluded to. He just sounds like he just like rolled out of bed and was like, "Oh yeah, I had this idea for these songs. Let's just do it." And like he's not even trying that hard, and it's coming out this good is really impressive. And, I was like, similar to what I was just talking about the abstract mind state. I was trying to like pick a song that like
Mm,
really stood out, and I guess there's a couple. Like I think "Rare" might
yeah,
be the
that was
track
good.
that I like the most. I like "Death Row East" a lot.
Yeah,
I thought "Nobody" stood out with Lauren Hill, kind of just taking over the second half, but that like saxophone like transition between verses and lyrics, I really enjoy. Anyone that's listening knows I like a good saxophone. But overall, I just feel like it's just like consistently quality throughout.
yeah,
There's a couple of moments where I'm like I don't want to hear Eminem. I'm sorry, like
yeah.
I don't need to hear him at this point. I know what I'm getting.
Notable for it being their first time both rapping on the same track. I believe Eminem produced the Nas song way back, but for their first time performing together. But yeah, like a lot of late Eminem, he doesn't make any fucking sense for half the verse. It's like, what the fuck is this?
hmm Yeah. So there's a couple of moments maybe don't hit as much, but pretty much from start to finish, even like looking down the track list, like My Bible and Not Nas is good, like or
Yeah, it ends
strong
strong.
finishing.
Yeah,
So um, this is just a really high quality album, start to finish. It's interesting because, and I hate that I'm couching everything with Kanye, but Kanye is someone who I think has had a really hard time transitioning into this next part of his career gracefully, and that's
yeah,
kind of I think what we expected with Kanye. Like he was never going to like just fade into the old man rapper without kicking and screaming, um, Nas really feels like he's kind of finding this space similar to where Jay-Z got to with 444. Would
yeah.
you agree?
Oh, absolutely. And that's what's so great about it too, because it seems like Nas is just getting a lot of flowers right now. He wasn't quite getting a lot of them once like Jay Z just became the commercial force that he was in like the 2000s, and the Nas albums stopped being quite as the main event that they were. Like around like Hip Hop is Dead, I guess. Like at that point, like
Mm,
Nas is like an OG, but he wasn't like still being rapidly consumed as he aged, whereas Jay Z was. And it's really cool to see Nas like just getting so much love because he's earning it because the music is really good. And I mean, to pull out a Lauren Hill feature in
Yeah.
2021, really, really exciting. I thought she sounded great.
Yep.
Just the sheer, I mean, that's rarer than getting an Andre feature. Like that's big news, honestly. Um, and yeah, I think my favorite song on this would be Death Row East.
Yeah.
Early and memorable for the production. Hit Boy's doing a lot of like record scratching on that, which sounds really cool. Always sounds timeless, despite the data reference that it would be. But I mean, the comment that Nas is making about his role in the East Coast West Coast beef in the '90s, leading to the death of Biggie and Tupac, is I think really cool to see that kind of like old man reflection in the
Sure.
song. And then of course you get the sample of the Nas show where they stopped the show to announce that Tupac had been killed. Of course, um, a little eerie to hear, but I thought that song was quite memorable.
Yeah, I agree. I thought that really stood out, and I think obviously ending with that like actual recording of the announcement, it's almost kind of like in a way like hearing or watching video of when like Bobby Kennedy announced that Martin Luther King was shot when he was on stage at a campaign rally. And I know it's like kind of different levels of like people in that case, but just like that kind of like moment is just so jarring. Really, really interesting to hear him rap about it. And yeah, I agree on Lauren Hill. I thought she sounded awesome, like I mentioned before. So um, definitely check this out. We've already added a track to our Nostalgia Best of 2021 playlist, so go check that out. Any last thoughts on this, Dave?
I'm curious to see if he gets another Grammy nomination. That'd be kind of wild if Nas started running it up. Last year at the Grammys, they notably nominated lots of more traditional rapidy rappers, of
Mhm.
course, headlined by Nas, who won, but also Freddie Gibbs, D Smoke, I forget who else. It'd be wild if like Nas gets nominated back to back. That'd be pretty funny.
I I think there's a very good chance of it. We'll talk about when we get to our Grammy pod down the line, but
Yeah, in the fall.
let's